An array is a container object that holds a fixed number of values of a single type. An array is used to store a collection of data, but it's often more useful to think of an array as a collection of variables of the same type. Instead of declaring individual variables, such as for this example, if I'm going to say integer numbers 0, numbers 1, numbers 2, numbers 3, up until numbers 9, and I'm assigning values, instead of doing that, I can declare one array like I'm doing there, and then I can use numbers at a specific index value, in this case numbers 0, numbers 1, numbers 2, numbers 3, numbers 4, and assigning values to those index values to represent individual variables. And the length of an array is established when the array is created. After creation, the length is fixed. So if we quickly have a look at this picture then, if I declare an array, you can see that the declaration basically is just int, or you can have different types. Obviously, you can have any primitive data type. So you'll start off with the type, and then two brackets there, and then the name of your array, and then you must say new int, because to create a new object in Java, we use the new keyword, but we'll get that in the next set of videos. So the new keyword creates a new object in memory, and this object will basically be an array of integer values that can accept 10 or store 10 values. So it's basically the same as what we're doing here. We're declaring there 10 variables and setting those values to 10 specific variables. So instead of doing that, we declare one array, and an array looks like this when declared in memory. So I'm essentially declaring 10 spaces in memory where I can save integer values, and you can see that they are indexed. So to get to the very first value in the array, we'll start at position number 0, 1, 2, 3 up until 9. So if the length of the array is 10 like we've declared there, then it can hold 10 integer values, but it will be indexed from position 0, 1, 2, 3 up until position 9. And you can see that's how we will then assign values. We will say numbers 0 equals 5, numbers 1 equals 10, and so it carries on until you get to numbers 9. Unfortunately, if your array is declared as a size 10 there, you cannot try to access the 11th value, which will be numbers 10. So now that we have a slight idea of what an array is, let's just close that picture. Let's see how we can declare it. So I'm going to delete all of these and just stop with the declaration of the array. Okay, so there's the declaration of our array. Another way to declare the exact same array would be to say int. I'm just going to call it something else. So let's say numbers. Instead of having the brackets there, we can say numbers 2 and then have the 2 brackets at the end equals new int and have it the 10 values. So declaring these two in this specific way, we are essentially creating two of the same arrays that can hold 10 integer values. But if you declare more than one array at a time, so if I'm going to say int numbers 3, comma numbers 4, comma numbers 5. In this case, numbers 3, numbers 4, and numbers 5 is declared as arrays. They're not initialized like we did in those two. And the other way of then declaring them would be to say, let's say this one should be numbers 6 with the block brackets at the end, and then numbers 7, numbers 8. So now the difference here is, you can see there I've placed the brackets at the front, and then we've got numbers 3, numbers 4, and numbers 5. If I do it this way, it means that only this one called numbers 6 will be an array. These two will be normal ints. So if I want to have these two also as arrays, then I would have to add the block brackets to both of them. So if you want to declare 3 arrays of the same type, then I can easily do it by just basically doing that first one, to have the block brackets at the beginning and then declaring them. All 3 of them will be integer arrays. But if I declare it with the block brackets at the end, then every array that you declare must have the block brackets at the end. So just some information that could be useful for you in the future. Right, so let's delete all of these and stick with that first one again. Integer numbers equals new int 10. So how do we assign values to the array? We've seen that now in the previous example, but you can basically go to your numbers array and switch to the specific index where you want to go and save a value. So in this case, in index number 0, I'm going to save a value of 10. in index, let's go to just another one there, index number 2, I will assign a value of 15. And let's say numbers at position 3 equals, let's make it a 20 there. So this is how I'll assign values to the specific elements inside of an array. Let's start with 0, 1, and 2 there. So let's just create, instead of saying 10 there, let's use 4 values there just to keep this simple. So I'm going to say numbers, let's do the last one there, 3 equals 25. So you can see then that we've assigned values to every single index value for that array. Now another way of doing this a bit short, if you know the values right from the start, I could say numbers, let's say 2 now, equals new int, and let's use that same values. So I'm going to say 4 again. So this is the declaration to say that I want to have 4 values stored in it. But instead of doing this, we could use the curly brackets and give the values right from the start. So I could say I want 10 there, then 15, then 20, and then 25. So this is essentially doing the exact same thing as what we did there. We're basically saying go and create a new array of size 1, 2, 3, 4, exactly like we had there, and into position 0, 1, 2, and 3, go and place those values. So these 5 lines of coding is doing essentially the same as this 1 line of coding. Okay, so there we have initialized it, we've declared the array, we've set the size to 4, and we set the values already in the array. So let's just quickly print out one of these values. So I'm going to say system.out.println, and let's print out numbers, which is the top array there, and let's go to, let's say what is in numbers 0. If you run this quickly, just to print out to see what is in numbers 0, and you can see there that it's the 10. So number 0, we placed a 10. If I change that to a 1 and run it quickly again, you can see the value prints out as 15, and that's what's saved into 15, or into position 1. So I can also change this to numbers 2 and go to position 1, and numbers 2 is this one, and position 1 is 0, 1 should be the 15. So now let's run this quickly again to see how it prints out, but that should be the 15 there, so you can see it prints out 15. Okay, so now an easier way to print out all the specific values of an array is to use a for loop. So with a for loop, I'll start at an index, and that's why normally we use an I when we're working with arrays, but it's up to you, it's just a variable name, but I stands basically for index there. So I will normally start my I variable there at a 0 because of our arrays starting at position 0 as the index value. And then we're going to test for the length of the array. So I'm going to say I less than, and the array, let's take the first one, numbers there. I'll use numbers, and there's a useful variable we can use there as part of the array class there, and that's called the length. And I'm going to use the length in there in order to indicate or to see how long that specific array is, or how many values can it store. In this case, you can see it's 4. So numbers.length will return a 4. If I say numbers2.length, it will return also 1, 2, 3, 4. It will return a 4. So we're essentially saying go from the index value 0 up until the index value of numbers.length, but less than numbers.length. So if I use a comment here, you're going to start at 0, and it should be less than numbers.length, in this case is 4. So what will happen is we're going to start at position 0, then it increments. Is 0 less than 4? Yes, it increments. Is 1 less than 4? It goes to 1 there. Yes, it is. So then we're going to go increment 2 less than 4. Yes, it is. And then the third one, is 3 still less than 4? Yes, it is. But as soon as we increment again, then 4 is not less than 4. So you can see that we're not going to go to numbers 4 there at all. Okay, so this is very important. You will go 1 less than the length of that specific array. So if it can hold 4 values, I will go to index number 3 as the last value. You see it's also 1 less, or always 1 less than the size of your specific array. So in this case, we're going to say numbers.length, which is 4. So we're going to go from 0 to 3 basically. And then we can print it out. So we're going to say system.out.println, and then we can print out that specific array. So we're going to say numbers at a specific index, and the index will be I in this case. And we know that I will start from 0, then go to 1, then go to 2, then go to 3, and then it will stop. So if we run this quickly, you'll see it prints out now all the values for me in a new line. So we've got 10, 15, 20, and 25. And even for this one, if we add another value of 30 there, and I say let's go to numbers2.length, and I print out numbers2, then it should print out 10, 15, 20, 25, and 30. And there you can see it. So now the length of this array changed now to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Remember, after you declared it, you cannot change it again. It will stay these values, or it will stay only 4 values that you can assign. Obviously, I can go and change it there afterwards, but after I had this one line in my coding, afterwards I cannot change the size. It will stay that specific size. Now let's just quickly have a look at the enhanced for loop. So there's a better for loop to do this. And this for loop, let me just add a system out print line here, so that you can see a little space between the two. Okay, so we're going to have another for loop here, and the enhanced for loop will basically be something where we declare a value or variable there that's called value, or whatever you want to call it, and then we pass in numbers, or, well, you can use either numbers, this array, if we want to print that one out, or this one. So let's print out the top one, which will just have 10, 15, 20, and 25. So this is the enhanced for loop then, and I'm going to have a system out print line there, but instead now of printing out numbers I, there's no I in this for loop. So what we print out is that variable called val. So basically what happens in this for loop, it will take, you can see there's the name of the array, and there's a variable. So this variable val will, when the first time the loop runs, it's going to get numbers 0 into val, and then we print it out. Second time the loop runs, numbers 1 will be saved into value, and then we print out the value. Then the next time it runs, numbers 2 will be saved. Then numbers 3 will be saved and print out to the screen. Okay, so if we run this quickly, you can see there's the space between the two, but you can see that the bottom one is 10, 15, 20, and 25, which is this one that we printed out, numbers. We can also say, let's print out numbers 2 there, run it again, and you can see the two for loops will now do exactly the same thing, 10, 15, 20, 25, and 30.